lots of you have just joined. Let's jump into the demo of the system now. Run through from start to finish how we can track and manage training, and also our update that we're going to be bringing to the system over the next few months as well. As I said, any questions that you have throughout, feel free to throw any questions into the Q&A section up at the top. We'll either answer those personally back to you, or we can actually answer them live as well if you think there's a question that will benefit everyone else as well, the answer. But perfect. So yeah, thanks for joining once again, everyone. I know we've got a mixture of some customers of Hands HQ who use our RAM side of the system already, and others who probably have never heard of Hands HQ before, and this is the first time that you're hearing of us. So this is the training register. So predominantly Hands HQ, what we have been focusing on for a very long time is our risk assessment and method statement software. However, over the last 2 years, we have been producing, and I think around about this time last year, we released the training register, first as a bolt-on product to our RAMs. But then we did actually have a lot of interest from a lot of other businesses from different industries, like manufacturing or principal contractors, those that still have a direct workforce, but don't necessarily write RAMs. So what we did is we made a lot of updates to the system. So now not only is it a bolt-on product, but it is also a standalone system. But all of those updates that we made to create it as a standalone have also been put into the sort of bolt-on as well. So everyone's benefiting from all of these updates that we have put into the system over the last 6 months. So I'm showing you at the moment the standalone system. However, yes, it does integrate, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on as to how that integrates with our RAMs at the moment too. Perfect. So when you first log into Hands HQ to the training register, you'll come to your personnel dashboard. This is essentially where all of the names of all of our employees that we are tracking training for will essentially live. Each employee will have their own profile essentially with all of their training in, which I'll go into in a moment. First, I just wanted to have a look at this graph and the table that we've got on the left-hand side here. So obviously we've got our red, amber, green color coding at this point, which essentially color codes to different parts of a journey of an individual's training record. So anything in red means that an individual's training is either missing or has expired. Anything green means that that individual's training is all up to date. And anything in orange means that within the next 60 days, this individual's training is due to expire. So essentially what will happen when an individual's color coding will go from green to orange, you'll actually receive an email as well. So you'll get notifications to say that Ellie's training is due within the next 60 days, and you're going to receive email notifications for that as well. You do also get so timely reminders throughout at different time points. If that training hasn't been updated, you'll receive multiple notifications. I believe at the beginning of every week as well, on a sort of early Monday morning, you can have an email set up that actually a reminder and a summary of all of your training requirements is going to be sent through to you at the beginning of the week as well. So a bit more proactive than what Excel is. It tends to be very reactive process, Excel. You've got the ability to track any subcontractors too. I appreciate sometimes with direct workforce, but more so with contractors, there does come the case where actually personnel will work for you for 6 months on a project. They may disappear elsewhere for 1.5 years, but the next time you've got a very similar project, they'll come back and you start using them for your work again. So rather than delete it and get rid of an individual from your training matrix altogether, or keeping them in there and their records to be sort of read and clogging up your page, essentially, we do have the ability to archive any of your personnel. So you can archive them and then restore their details as and when they do decide to come back and work on another project with you as well. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you a few of these tabs before I actually jump into the personnel page in a moment. And we'll show you actually how we can set up an individual up on the system. But let's jump into roles first of all. Essentially, what we're doing at this point within the roles tab and how we set up a personnel within the system is we're creating or essentially running our training needs analysis at this point. We are adding different roles to the system, and then we align in sort of core competencies against those roles. So this section for roles and the tab for roles, this is really handy, especially if a client ever turns around and says, right, could you please send a electrical engineer down to site? You can come into here, go into roles, find that role, electrical engineer, and we can see all of our individuals at the business who currently carry the role of electrical engineer. but also those whose training is up to date and actually compliant to go on site. So we can see here, for example, Vicky can be sent to site. Vicky's got the right training. Ellie has, but it's due to expire within the next 60 days. And also anyone up here, we can see these are electrical engineers that are currently missing some form of training at the moment. But as I mentioned just a moment ago about that sort of training needs analysis, when we go into the electrical engineer, we can then go into our course here, our courses. And this is essentially the standard 5 core competencies or core training courses that an electrical engineer must have in order to be compliant at their role for us as a business, which we can see here. So essentially, when we add an individual to our system, and then we align them to electrical engineer role, it's then going to pull through all of this information and all this trainer standard, which I'll show you shortly. Very easy, very straightforward to add a brand new role as well, which you could just do up here. So let's have a look at our course register. Our course register is essentially all of the different courses that we have across the business that we're currently tracking. It's very straightforward, very easy to be able to add a brand new course. We do have a course library in the background, which are a library of all of your sort of like standard courses across the industry. However, I'm sure you have some that are bespoke to yourself, maybe like internal company training. So it's very straightforward just to add a training course that you need to. You can see here just how many different courses we have. However, if it's unique, then you could just create and add your own course as well. When you do add a course, it's going to ask you about the expiration date of that course. Does it have one? And if so, what is that renewal frequency? Is it every year that you have to update that course? 3 years, every 5 years? And then also, does this training course require any evidence? You might have like first aid at work courses, for example, where you don't really need to provide the evidence. However, you might have an asbestos awareness course, and we want to be able to see the evidence and the certificate within the system and hold that information there as well. So I'll be able to show you how we can do that shortly too. And once you've added that course, so if I go on to electrical level 1, for example, we can see all of our details that we've added, all of our personnel within the business who currently have that course, and also all of the roles that that course aligns to as well. So essentially, this electrical level 1 course, any of these roles and positions within the business must have this course to be compliant in their role. And these are all of the individuals that currently carry that competency as well. So if we just jump back onto our personnel page, and obviously, of course, we do have our subcontractors. This is where you can manage sort of subcontractors. So we can add a brand new subcontractor, add a new business, and when you add a personnel to the system, you can align them to different subcontractors as well, if you needed to, and if you wanted to track your subbies. So let's go ahead and actually add a person to the system. But before I do that, I don't know have we had any questions come through, Irina, at all? Anything to answer now?
Yeah, so we had one question from Fintan. He was asking about whether it's possible to archive subcontractors if you're not using them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, good question. So to archive subcontractors, let me do that now. If we've got one up here. Yeah, so we've got a subcontractor down here. Damien, if I remember how to do this, then yes, very straightforward to easily to just archive this individual and then just sort of throw them into that archive pot. If Damien then ever does come back to work for us on another project in 6 months to a year's time, then you can obviously restore Damien's information at that point as well. The good thing about archiving those individuals, you're not going to receive those email updates and email notifications as and when their training is expiring. So you can sort of forget about them for the moment, but then pull their details back and information back when you need them again. Hope that's answered your question. Any more questions, feel free to fire them into the Q&A or the chat section, and we'll answer some questions in a bit as well. Great. So just go back to adding a new individual to the system. So we add, click the button, which is add new personnel. It's going to ask us for a first name and last name. As it's football season at the moment, let's add Harry Kane. He's not had too much good time at Euros, so he's now coming to work for us. We can see that he's an employee or a subcontractor at this point, so you can select either or. And then we're also able to align a role to that individual. So if we wanted to go with electrical engineer, select electrical engineer. You do have the ability to add some further information at this point. However, I appreciate a lot of you have probably got your own HR sort of systems where you hold a lot of this information, but you can do that here if you needed to. So let's go ahead and add Harry as an electrical engineer. So we can now see that he's added, and we can see that he goes straight into expired or missing training. So if we just go into that personnel's account, we can then see that because we've added Harry as an electrical engineer, these are the standard 6 core competencies as part of our sort of training needs analysis that we've identified that this individual must have to be compliant at their work. So we can actually go ahead and start either booking those courses in, or showing that we've made a booking, showing we've made an action against that, or actually updating for the fact that actually, yes, this individual does have the correct training. So it may be that Harry has joined from a previous role and therefore actually already has the training up to date. So we can go into here and go into record new training. Right, Harry does already have his electrical level 1. So let's just say he completed this at his previous role last month. And then we can add the expiry date in if there is one, and then also got the ability to upload evidence as well. So if you've got a certificate, you can upload that. I'll show you what that will look like in a moment. We can now see that we've updated that training course and it's now turned to green. So if we were to go to our first aid at work, for example, Harry doesn't have this as part of his role. So what we want to do is we want to show that we've actually made that booking for our first aid at work. So we can actually go down to here to add booking. So we can say, right, so the training course has been booked for end of this month, and we can add any booking notes in here as well, which we can then just add booking. So those booking notes will then be sent to that individual as part of an email notification just before the training has been booked for. I will be showing you in a moment our new sort of feature release that we have in production at the moment, or about to go into production, which is our e-learning integration. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is integrating with an e-learning provider, which will allow us to actually book training directly from the system here, which is going to then push that training course out to the individual who can take that course, and then the certificates will be updated within the system as well on those records. So it's very hands-off, yet they're going to be receiving the training they need. I'll show you what that looks like as part of a prototype in a moment as well. Great. So if I just go back to the library, I'm going to shoot down to my account, which has a bit of a Blue Peter moment, I guess, which is sort of already filled out. Everything's up to date. We've got images in here as well. So it's sort of showing you a working example, if you like. Obviously, where I mentioned earlier, we've got a training needs analysis and the courses that link up to our roles. However, we do also have the ability to add in the additional training as well. So you're not bound by the sort of training courses that you must have as part of that role. You can add additional training. These might be training courses that someone's carried from a previous role. As a health and safety manager, as I am here, yes, these are my sort of standard courses that I have to have, but I also have my electrical level 1. So if we're low on employees out working, then at least I can show that I've got the right training actually to be able to join in and give a helping hand at that point as well. Just so you are aware, I will never try and touch any electrical stuff ever. I won't even try and put up a shelf as well. I'm only good at demoing software. I don't put shelves up or do any electrics. My bulb has just gone as well, and I probably won't even try and change my bulb, but there we go. So as we can see up here, obviously I mentioned about different certificates as well that we can upload into the system. So you are able to upload any evidence too. This is really handy, especially if you ever have clients that turn around to you and say, right, you've got Joe Bloggs coming down to site today. Could you please prove that that individual has got the right training to be here doing the work that they're set out to do? I appreciate that at the moment, a lot of the time when a client asks for that, a lot of panic starts happening in the office, trying to find those certificates, scanning them in, trying to find them in old emails or in different folders on your computer. Because all of your certificates are already held within the system, you've got the ability to download a training report on this individual. So what you can do is download training report. You can decide what information you want in there. Do you want your notes, training history, evidence? In this case, we just want our evidence, which is essentially those certificates. And it's going to create for us a PDF document with all of this information in it for us. Now, this is where the current how this sort of integrates with our RAM side of the system as well, for those of you who are currently using our risk assessment and method statement software. When you actually create a RAMS document and you obviously distribute that document out to your clients, you've got the ability now to be able to choose whether you want the training report to go in as well. So not only can you fire off that sort of RAMS document you've created, you can also add your training report to the back of that document as well if you wanted to. It's also going to, when you add that personnel to that job, it's also going to say whether they've got the right training to be able to go to that job or not. If the RAM side of the system is something that you've never seen before and you'd like to, then feel free to get in touch and happy to take you through that. But this is the final document that it creates. So obviously it's going to pull through all of those training records and evidence of that individual, and it will just create for us this PDF document, which could be printed off or sent via email as well. Great. So if I just go back to here, obviously we've got details down on the left-hand side as well. You can always jump into that individual and update anything you need to, or add any training courses against that individual too. Another really handy sort of feature that we have here as well is our activity tab. So you can see how an individual's training has changed over time. So you've got that, you know, great for sort of ISOs, for sort of document management, document control, full audit and activity history of that individual as well. So if I just go back to this page, I appreciate that, and when we actually set the system up, a lot of our customers who are using the training register got back to us and said, you know, this is great. It's going to save us a lot of time. However, there are certain circumstances where we actually need a training matrix, where we need an Excel spreadsheet. Often that will be for audits, for tenders as well. So there are also accreditation. So I know Chaz requires it as part of their accreditation. So what you're able to do is actually, there's a button which you can see there, which is called download training matrix. And then what happens, it would just essentially pull that report off as an Excel spreadsheet. So you can go in here and actually manipulate some of this information if you need to, add some sort of filters and filter down that content. I did actually have a customer the other day when I was demoing the product to them say, oh, this is great. What I could do is I can download this and then change all the training to look as if it's all up to date and then send it off to my clients. I was like, well, it's not really the point. But if that's what floats your boat, then go for it. So yeah, you can pull this report off. It's worth mentioning any updates that you make to this report is only going to stay on the Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't sort of go back into the system. So any updates that you make have to be done through Hands HQ side of the system as well. Perfect. I think we just stop to see if we've got, have we got any other questions at all, just before I do jump on to have a little look at the new sort of feature update at all?
Yeah, sure. So there was one question from Carl about whether the data can be transferred from Excel to our system. So I can answer this. We are currently working on making the process as smooth and as simple as possible. So we'll at some point probably introduce something like that. But at the moment, we have the CS team who will be happy to help you import the majority of your data to our system, just to make the process, as smooth as possible.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Irina. Yeah, essentially what we have is, as part of the sort of process of getting on board with the training register, our customer success team can help with that process. So we would be able to upload some of that content for you. So be in your roles and your courses, we can upload that content to the system for you. As I'm sure you can appreciate, in terms of sort of GDPR, can't essentially take all the names and information and so on. So we upload that part, and then it's for you just to add those names, link them up to a role, and then the courses will be pulled through at that point as well. Any other questions at all before I jump into the e-learning integration? No? Perfect. Any other questions? Feel free to fire those in now. We will be able to answer those towards the end. But perfect, yeah, as I have alluded to throughout the webinar, we do have a really quite exciting feature and update that's going to be coming to the system soon. So obviously it's one thing tracking and managing the training. It's also another actually being able to do that sort of e-learning and actually run the training itself. So we aren't a training company, we are a software company. However, there are some great e-learning providers out there. So at the moment we are working on an integration, actually to be able to, when a training is due to expire or has expired, you can actually send out that e-learning course via the Hands HQ system. So everything soon will be able to be done under one roof. To give you an example of actually how this would work and how this would look, you should be able to see my screen at the moment where I've got our sort of slides and just a quick prototype of this. So we've got Rebecca Cole's account here. We can see all of the trainings currently up to date. But then obviously at some point, a training course is due to expire, which is our asbestos awareness. So what we can do at this point is a button appears, which is enroll online. So we can select enroll online. As with many other e-learning providers, you're essentially going to have tokens or credits, each being a training course. So we can enroll Rebecca on this course. We can now see that Rebecca has been enrolled. So essentially what's going to happen now for Rebecca is an email is going to be sent to Rebecca saying your asbestos awareness course is due to expire. Could you please take the e-learning course, which we could just do here, which we can just select take course. It's going to take us straight through to the actual e-learning and online training course. The partnership that we're going to have is with iHasco. You may or may not be aware of them, but they have hundreds of really great sort of e-learning training courses, of which you'll have access to via Hands HQ. So we can take this course, as with sort of many other e-learning courses, very straightforward. You're going to be taken through a few videos, a few sort of workbooks and so on. And essentially, you're going to take these tests, take a test at the end. In Rebecca's case, she's absolutely smashed it, got 14 out of 14, 100%. So usually at this point, it's about you would download the certificate and send it off to the training manager or the line manager, and it would be their responsibility to essentially update that record within the system. But this is all going to be doing it actually automatically within the training register. So once that training course has taken place, as we can see now, the asbestos awareness course has the expiry date is now being updated. So it's all up to date with the most up-to-date certificate within there as well. So we don't even have to upload the certificate. That gets uploaded for us. So does the expiry date. And essentially, it's very hands-off at that point. All of that information is being updated for us. So hopefully that will save you even more time. Great. I don't know if does anyone have any questions around the integration at all? It is something that we're putting into sort of production now. If it is something that you're interested in early, then obviously we can keep you up to date with any of the updates that we have for the system and also a release time as well. We do have Arena as part of the product team on here today, so the brains of the e-learning. So if you do have any questions, feel free to fire those over to us now, and we'll be able to answer some of your questions.
Yes, there was a question from Daryl about when it is going to be available, the e-learning part of things. So I guess I would say that we are currently working on making the integration work, and that would potentially take some more time, but I don't think it's going to be more than, we should be able to roll it out until the end of the year, I would say.
Great, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll obviously keep you all updated as and when that would be. We do have on our website, we'll put it in the follow-up email with the recording of this video, but we do have our landing page purely just for this integration. So if you wanted to join the waiting list, then feel free to whack your email in there, and we'll be sending out probably sort of monthly or bi-monthly reminders or updates of the system, how it's going and when that's due to be ready. So there's a couple of questions around price as well. Price and cost of the system depends on quite a few things. First of all, the number of personnel you have, also whether you are a current user of the Hands HQ RAM system or not. There's a difference between sort of bolt-on pricing and also standalone pricing. Also sort of slightly depending on what package you're on at the moment in terms of that tiering system. So what I'll do is I can get in touch with everyone, and I can give you a sort of price based on what it is that you would need and your requirements. But if everyone could maybe let us know in the chat, Carl, I can see that you've popped a message, so I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If everyone could just sort of say yes, please, if they'd like us to give you a call this morning to run through sort of pricings and next steps, then I'll put you to the top of the list, and I will be giving you a call shortly. But other than that, if there is any other questions, feel free to let us know now. Otherwise, I'll be reaching out to hopefully everyone shortly, and I'll be able to answer some of your remaining questions that you may have. Oh, I've just had another question in there. Yeah, of course. I'll be reaching out to all of you individually. So any questions I can answer those there. Fintan, I've just seen your question. So yes, I'll be able to answer your questions and get an email address across to you. My email address is mason@handshq.com. So feel free to send any questions over to there, and happy to help out. Otherwise, I will try and give everyone a call today. But yeah, thanks very much everyone for joining. Really do appreciate it. An email will be going around to you shortly with a recording of this today. So feel free to share that out with the rest of the team, and also a link to the landing page that you can see here. Any questions, feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, thanks very much for joining today.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Speak to you soon. Enjoy the sun.